Hello, we are Daan, Pim and Ruard, and welcome to our video. We are very honored that you have come to our page and are watching this vlog.
In the past couple of months we have read a book and a poem, and today we are going to discuss these books and poems with each other and give our opinion.
First of all, we will review our book and poem individually. After that, we will discuss the similarities and differences together.
Hello, my name is Daan and this is my individual part. I'm going to answer some questions about my book and my poem. Starting off with the first one. What's the title and who is the author of your book? The title of my book is The Sun Also Rises, written by Ernest Hemingway. The book is divided into three different parts, book 1, book 2 and book 3. Book 1 is about the daily life of three friends who live in Paris shortly after the First World War. Book 2 takes place in Pamplona, and the three friends are there on an annual fishing trip. It is in the northern of Spain. The three friends visit the San Fermin festival. That's a fiesta that is in the book called Fiesta. There they watch bullfighting and they party there a lot with a lot of drinking. In book 3 there's the aftermath of the fiesta and the friends go back to their homes. In the book there is a main character called Jake Barnes. He is a veteran from the First World War. He fought at the Italian front and there happened something terrible for him. He sustained a serious injury through a bomb. Jake is, due to this situation, not able to have a sexual relationship with his love, Brad Ashley, and he's very upset about that. Now we go on to the second question. What is the title and who is the author of your poem? The title of my poem is a German war primer written by Bertolt Brecht. The poem is written shortly before the Second World War in 1937. It's about the fear of an upcoming world war and people do not know what to expect, but one thing that plays is fear. Now on to the third question. During which literary period were your book and poem written? The book and my poem were written in the literary period of the modernism, the period in the first half of the 21st century. The book is written shortly after the First World War in 1926, cited on the First World War. The poem was written slightly before the Second World War in 1937. The fourth question is, what is the topic of your book and poem? The topic of my book and poem is both war. And now on to the fifth question. What is the theme of your book and your poem? The theme of my book is that war not only brings death and destruction, but also has a big impact on the mental state of everyone involved. And the theme of my poem is that war gives a feeling of insecurity and fear at the inhabitants. And now on to the last question. Would you recommend your book and your poem? I would not recommend my book because it's not a book with a lot of interesting occurrences in it. The story of the book was a lot about dialogues with the main character and the character with himself. I like to read books with more adventure and a bit more passion in the stories. I would not recommend it either because it's really unrealistic. People go far too often to the pub to drink a lot. The people drink. If you would drink that much, I think you would probably die. I would recommend the poem because it's a very clear meaning what the writer thinks about the term war. It is slightly before the Second World War. There's described that the inhabitants of the country are exhausted, hungry, insecure for the war, and the leaders try to appease the people. The main things you think of by thinking on war. It gives a clear explanation by the fear of an upcoming war. I like to read books and in this case poems where you can feel the fear in it. That's why I like to read books about war. Then you can well empathize with the characters in the book or the poem. On the other side, I don't like to read poems normally because I don't understand the underlying idea with it. And books is a lot easier.
Hello, my name is Ruard, and for our individual part, we have prepared a couple of questions. Starting with the first question is, what is the title and who's the author of your book? The title of my book is The Great Gatsby, and the author is called Francis Scott Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald was an American novelist and short story writer who mainly wrote in the period from 1920 to 1940. He didn't achieve any major successes during his lifetime, but is now considered to be one of the greatest American writers of all time. Fitzgerald was a well-known alcoholic and became notorious in the 1920s for his extraordinary and heavy drinking. He also suffered from tuberculosis and died from a heart attack at the age of 44. Second question is, what's the title and who's the author of your poem? My poem is called If Only for a Moment, and it's written by Ashley Graves. I searched for information about this poem and write it on the internet, but it seems like this poem was written by an infamous writer, and so I couldn't find any background information about Ashley Graves or about his poem. The third question is, during which literary period were your book and poem written? The Great Gatsby was published in 1925, and this literary period was called Modernism, and only for a moment, was uploaded to a site for poems in 2008, so I would say it's postmodernism, but because I couldn't find any background information, I'm not entirely certain. The fourth question is, what's the topic of your book and poem? In both my book and my poem, the topic is love. The fifth question is, what's the theme of your book and poem? For my book, I think the theme is that the willingness to do everything when you're in love, to be with the person you love, and that love makes blind. For my poem, I think the writer is trying to illustrate and describe how it is to be in a breakup situation. So I think she or he is trying to put words to his or her feelings. The sixth and final question is, would you recommend your book and poem, or why not? I wouldn't recommend my book to anyone who loves a story with a good portion of action or adventure, because I think the story develops very slow and there isn't much going on until the last part of the book. Although this contained a lot of action, I didn't enjoy the final part because I think the story ends in a big anticlimax, and while it can be interpreted as original and unexpected, I just think it was a major disappointment, because after reading so much about the love of Jay and what he was willing to do for Daisy, I really wanted to see him live happy ever after with her, but that didn't happen. Also, I really look forward to reading about the big parties given at Gatsby's house, because Nick heard some such great stories about them. But the parties weren't described as extreme and as extravagant as I was expecting when I started reading about them. I think this is due to the fact that the book is almost a century old and that it was a bit taboo to write about parties with a lot of sexism and drinking in this time period. I was hoping to read about parties as extravagant like the parties given in the Playboy Mansion, but I find this to be yet another disappointment. I didn't experience the parties the way I hoped I would. I find it hard to talk about a recommendation of the poem because I haven't read a lot of poems, and I just think I haven't read enough poems to conclude what makes a good poem and what makes a bad one. But I think I would recommend this poem to someone who is going through a breakup, because it might give this person some advice or some support when they are going through this difficult time. And yes, this was my final question. So this was the end of my individual part.
I am Pim, and now I'm going to do my individual part.
let's start with the first question. What is the title and who is the author of your book? So, the title of the book I'd like to discuss about is Animal Farm. The original name of the farm where the book is about is called Manor Farm. The animals at that farm start a revolution because the farmer treats them wrong, and that they call it the Animal Farm because they took it in and it's now managed by animals. That's why this book is called Animal Farm. Animal Farm is written by George Orwell. Orwell was born in Motihari, India in 1903 and died in 1950. His real name is Eric Blair. Okay, now I'm going to read out the second question. What is the title and who is the author of your poem? The poem is called Soviet Empire. The author of the poem is unknown. What I do know is that this poem is published on SovietEmpire.com and that the user who published this poem is called Fitzy. Now I want to read out my chosen poem. As king of the hill, I will exert my will. Let blood spill and drink my fill. If I were king, few would sing, as I did bathe in the gore of the poorest of poor. Where once I was all, now I am none, but the rule will fall, the restoration's begun. Okay, yeah, that's my poem where I will discuss about. Okay, the next question. During which literary period were your book and poem written? Okay, my poem is written during the postmodernism. That's from 1965 to present. Postmodernism is a late 20th century movement characterized by broad skepticism, subjectivism, or relativism, a general suspicion of reason, and an acute sensitivity to the role of ideology in asserting and maintaining political and economic power. Okay, the next question. What is the topic of your book and poem? Now, that's quite simple. The topic of my book and short poem is the Soviet Union. Okay, the next question. What is the theme of your book and poem? Okay, the theme of my book and poem is the corruption of socialist ideals in the Soviet Union. Okay, the last question. Would you recommend your book and poem? Yeah, I would definitely recommend my book and poem because a good book will stand out in your memory for one or more reasons, even after a long time has passed. The reason why Animal Farm stands out in my memory is because it's one of the more chilling novels I've ever read. It's quick and easy to read. I strongly recommend it as a must-read book everyone should look at even once in their lifetime. It's a powerful story that warns of the dangers of power, corruption, tyranny, and social injustice. Okay, so that was my in the video part. Thank you for watching, and till next time. Bye.
Okay, so now we are going to discuss the similarities between our four works of literature. So starting off with the first question, Daan, what is your topic?
My topic is war.
And Ruard, what's your topic?
My topic for my book and my poem is love.
Okay, so war and love. Okay, first question to Daan. What are the similarities between your book and the topic love from Ruard?
The topic love is also played in my book because in my book the main character called Jake wants to have a sexual relationship with Brad Ashley, but he isn't able to because he sustained a serious injury in the First World War at the Italian front due to a bomb.
Okay, and Ruard, do you see any similarities between your book and Daan's topic?
Well, I think you could see some similarity because the story for my book is set just after the First World War, and all the characters in my book the men are war veterans, so I think it may have influenced their decision making.
Okay. The next question. Daan, what is your theme of your book and poem?
The theme of my book is that war not only brings death and destruction, but also has a big impact on the mental state of everyone involved. From my poem, the theme is that war gives a feeling of insecurity and fear.
Okay, I understand. Ruard, do you see any similarities between your theme? First of all, what is your theme?
The theme of my book is the desire to be close to someone who you really love, and the theme of my poem is I think what it is like to go to a breakup.
Okay, and do you see any similarities
Between my book and poem and Daan's themes?
Yes.
Well, I think in my book it could have played a small part that my characters may be influenced by the First World War, and for my poem I don't see any similarities.
Okay, that's clear. And Daan, do you see any similarities between your theme?
For the book, I see a similarity because the main character Jake feels very upset he can't get a sexual relationship, so it's also a bit the same as Ruard's themes.
Desire.
Yes.
Okay. So we shall go further. Daan, would you read your fellow students called Ruard? Would you read his book?
No, I don't think so because Ruard also said in his recommendation that he don't like to read a book without a lot of passion and without a lot of adventures, and it's the same reason why I would not recommend this book because I like to read books with a lot of adventures and stuff in that.
Okay, and after you read Daan's opinion of his book, would you read his book?
Well, even though I'm quite a big fan of war stories and I think war is quite interesting, I don't think I would read his book because he also said there isn't a lot happening there. There isn't a lot going on, so I need a book that is a real page turner and gives me something new on every page and some action. So I don't think I would read his book.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
So we have just discussed the similarities and differences between Daan's poem and book and my poem and book. And now we are going to discuss the poem and book of Pim and Daan. So the topic of Daan's book was war, and it was also the topic of his poem. And the theme of his book was that war not only has a big impact of not only makes casualties and destruction, but also has a big mental impact, right?
Yes.
So, Pim, do you see any similarities between his topic and his theme and your book or poem?
Okay, so my topic is the Soviet Union, and Daan's topic is war. My story is a powerful story that warns of the dangers of corruptions, tyranny, and social injustice. These things also happens during the World Wars, so I think that are the similarities between my topic and Daan's
Okay.
topic.
Daan, do you see any similarity between Pim's topic and your book or poem?
Yes, but because I don't see a similarity with my book because my book plays before the beginning of the Soviet Union, but with my poem, that was the feeling of insecurity and fear before the beginning of the Second World War. That I think you can link that to the Soviet Union.
Okay. And do you see any similarities with his theme? Or did you just mention it?
Yeah, my theme is the corruption of socialist ideals in the Soviet Union.
Yes.
So, also during this world wars, there are many leaders who comes to power by such ideals. So I think that's a big similarity between my theme and Daan's theme.
Okay. And Daan, do you see any similarity between your book or poem and the poem of Pim? Of the theme of Pim?
No, I don't think I see a similarity between Pim's themes and my book and poem.
Alright.
Van die is wel heel leuk gaan.
Yeah, we move off the.
Maar jij
Would you rate?
Oh ja, ik ben nog, would you read?
Ja, oké, maakt niet
Sorry.
uit. Maakt niet uit.
Ja. So, in the individual part, you've both told your recommendation for your book or poem. So, Pim, after hearing Daan about his poem or book, would you think you would read his book?
I think I would definitely read Daan's book because I like these themes about the world wars. I think it's very interesting, and that's why I like to read this book.
Okay. And Daan, do you think the corruption of what is it?
Dit moet dus opnieuw.
Dat is niet handig, hè? Waarom niet dat?
Ik wil gewoon zijn 10 nog een keer noemen. Maar Daan, do you
Als je
think?
dan nog eens... Nee,
Ja,
maar
dat kan
dit
wel.
moet helemaal opnieuw.
Nee, dat moet je gewoon even tekenen en klaar.
Ja.
Ja, ga dan.
Daan, do you think you would read Pim's book?
I think I would read book because I already. Kijk, wacht even. Kan ik zeggen dat ik de film heb gezien? Waarom zou ik dat niet kunnen zeggen?
Ja, dat je de film al.
Ja,
Oké.
dat is gewoon.
Daan, would you think of Daan, do you think you would read Pim's book?
Yeah, I think I would read this book because I already saw the film and I like film very much because it was a very interesting film with a lot of adventures in it, and it gives a good illustration about the Russian Revolution in 1917.
Alright.
So now we come to the final part of our discussion. Ruard, what are the similarities between your topic love and the topic of Pim, Soviet Union?
Well, I think the similarity between the Soviet Union and topic love is that the basic idea of the Soviet Union is equality, and I think this comes from loving every human being equal. So I think love is love plays a major part in the Soviet Union.
Pim, what are your sides on this?
So Ruard's topic is love. I don't think Ruard's topic love has anything to do with my topic about the Soviet Union. My topic is more about what I said, the corruption of the socialist ideals, and I think love isn't and hasn't anything to do with that.
Okay. Pim, what are the similarities between your works when it comes to the theme?
Yeah, first of all, I would repeat my theme. My theme was the corruption of socialist ideals in the Soviet Union. Yeah, I don't think there are any similarities either between my theme and Ruard's book, because if a leader comes to power in a certain region, I don't think that has anything to do with love.
Okay. Ruard, would you read Pim's book and poem?
No, I don't think I would read his book or poem. I've also, just like you, I've also seen the movie about Animal Farm, and I'm not interested in the Soviet Union, and therefore I don't think it has anything of importance for me, so I wouldn't read it.
Okay. And Pim, would you read Ruard's book?
Yeah, what can make clear about Ruard's opinion of the book is that The Great Gatsby is a very realistic look into one of the more interesting and exciting times in American history. And since I am not interested in American history, I have no intention to read the book. Why Animal Farm stands out in my opinion is because it is it's one of the more chilling novels I've ever read. So, Ruard, I have a question for you. Is The Great Gatsby quick and easy to read?
Well, I think the language used in The Great Gatsby is quite easy to read. It's not that difficult language, but the story develops quite slow, and it is slow until the end, so I think that makes it harder to read. So overall I would say it's not so easy to read.
Okay, now it's very important for me that a book is quick and easy to read. That's another reason why I don't think I'm gonna read this book.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for watching to this vlog, and to the next time.